Okay, in today's session, we are going to begin learning about Kadish. Kadish in particular to mincha. We usually always say Kadish. It's very easy to remember after laining, at the bima, where you read from the Torah, where you lain from the Torah. Mincha on Shabbos, we do not. And the question is, why not? And the question is, would there also be other times when we wouldn't be saying Kaddish when we lain from the Torah? For example, on a fast, mincha, a fast. Why not? Additionally, we have to try to figure out what the story would be if a person did accidentally say Kaddish. Someone accidentally said Kaddish after laning. Would you say another Kaddish in it, and why?
After laining Shabbos mincha.
Yeah. Would you say another one before shemoneh? The old Vehadar Mishna Berura gives a brief introduction to the Mishnah Berura and Simon Risadi Beis of Cotton Dalit. They say a general rule. La'olam, we do not say Kaddish without saying pesukim beforehand. Okay. Unless it's after shemoneh esray. If it's after shemoneh esray, then we say Kaddish. Why? Because in the beginning of Kadish, we say Skadel v'yiskadesh or Yiskadal v'yiskadash, however you pronounce it. And the Hashem's name only gets holier and uplifted through Torah Shebechsav. Because that's the main part. So therefore, you say Kaddish after you lain from the Torah. If you're not laning from the Torah, you need to say minimally one mizmor or 3 pesukim. Okay? That's Torah. So you have to do. Torah Shebechsav, the written Torah. So that's when it comes to Kaddish. Now, when it comes to shemoneh esray, when it comes to davening in general, rather, they enacted to say Kaddish anytime when something is completed, when there's a completion of a certain matter, and it has pesukim, you say Kaddish. For example, after pesukei dezemra, we say what's called a half of a Kaddish, or a chasi Kaddish. Because it has the regular text, etc., and then it ends. Okay? Full Kaddish, of course, is you have tiskabel after Yehi Shalom Rabba, and then Oseh Shalom Ben Ramav. Kaddish Yosem is that, but scratch the tiskabel. And the Kadish derabanon is Al Yisrael Rabbanim Al Talmidei Ve'Akol Madoskin, etc. And then you do you don't do tiskabel. In Kadish derabanon, you also do tiskabel, right? No, you don't do tiskabel, and you do Yehi Shalom Rabba, right? You don't do tiskabel. Do Yehi Shalom, right? Okay, and Oseh Shalom. Those are different types of Kadish. So after pesukei dezemra, you say the half Kadish, Chatzi Kadish. Also mincha, we say the chasi Kadish, half of a Kadish, after Ashrei, as we know, because Ashrei, and this is key, is an inyan b'fnei atzmo. It's an independent part of the davening. Because the Gemara in berachos Davdala teaches us anyone who says Ashrei thrice daily, muftach lo shehu bein olam haba. Kol oimer b'kol yom shalosh pa'amim muftach lo shehu bein olam haba.
Apparently, the first one doesn't count then.
What do you mean?
The first one actually in the middle of pesukei dezemra, right?
That does count. That's 1. 2 is after on shacharis. 3 is by mincha.
No, we don't say a Kaddish after that Ashrei.
That's because it's grouped within pesukei dezemra. It's in the middle of berachos. So now, this statement from the rabbis, from the Gemara, that anyone who says Ashrei 3 times a day is guaranteed the next world, the world to come, this is referring to you can't just say the words, you have to mean what you're saying. After laining, similarly, after laining is a mitzvah b'fnei atzma. After you lain from the Torah, that is an independent mitzvah. So these are some of the rules of when we say Kadish. Let's keep all of this in mind. Now, we typically juxtapose Kadish to shemoneh esray, because the Mishnah teaches us in berachos daf lamed, we only daven mitoch kovid rosh, when a person has a certain seriousness, serious attitude. So it wouldn't be considered a good attitude, so to say, to just jump into shemoneh esray without saying anything. And therefore, this is why we always say Kadish before shemoneh esray. And then through this, we will daven the shemoneh esray over there. Okay? Properly. Except for shacharis. Shacharis, we do not do this because we need to do a semichas geulah letefila. We have to go right into shema and the berachos of shema, straight into shemoneh esray. It's the most severe in terms of halachically in the morning, and therefore we go straight in. So this is basically a brief introduction as to when we say Kadish. Taking that and now applying that to the Mishna Berura, and before we go in, the Lavush says that actually we say Kadish before shemoneh esray, so everyone will know when to say shemoneh esray. Okay, interesting reason. The Mishna Berura in Daled actually says that on mincha, right, after we lean from the Torah, we do not say Kadish on the bima, ever. We never say Kadish up there after we lean.
Yeah, by mincha.
By mincha, he said. The Mishnah Berura said mincha, correct? Okay. That's how he started. Talking about mincha.
I don't remember Yom Kippur. I guess we don't either.
Forget about Yom Kippur for now. But we don't do it on Shabbos, and we don't do it on a fast. Okay? Not like shacharis, but we do it. Okay? Excuse me. Rather, we say Kadish before the Amud. In other words, Chazan doesn't say it by the bima, where the Torah was read from. Rather, he says it where he davens from. Okay? After the Torah is returned. And before shemoneh esray. And that Kadish counts as a dual purpose. Number one, that Kadish counts as the Kadish before shemoneh esray. Like we said, we always say Kadish before shemoneh esray and after shemoneh esray. Sandwich. Number one. Number two is that it covers the potential Kadish that we needed to say when we read from the Torah. Okay?
So
yeah.
We're talking now by shacharis, right? Because we talked about by mincha, both by Shabbos mincha and tainus, we don't say Kadish.
Okay.
Now, we do say Kadish from the bima when we're done laining.
What?
Yeah.
Mincha?
And he wasn't talking about mincha just now, is he?
He's talking about mincha. Tainus b'mincha.
Lo kfi shenogin kashem Torah b'shacharis, right? Keep going b'shacharis.
Yeah.
Shomim Kadish b'yarachar kriya. Lo omrim Kadish. So the El is going back to mincha. It says El omrim Kadish rak l'fnei amud. He's going back to mincha.
Yeah.
Okay, I got confused. Okay,
yeah. Okay, now. So that Kadish covers both. Because if you're going to say Kadish immediately on the bima after you lean from the Torah, so then you can't say Kadish before shemoneh esray after you put the Torah away. Okay. Why? Because there's no hefsek. Remember, we learned in the introduction, David, you can't just say Kadish out of nowhere. Okay?
True.
You have to have something to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we would say Kadish when we would finish laning from the Torah by the bima, that would be considered that Kadish covers the potential Kadish that we need to say before shemoneh esray. because nothing interrupted between the Kadish after the laining and shemoneh esray. Now I know what everyone's going to say. What are you going to say? Say it. What do you mean there's no interruption? There's plenty of interruptions, right?
Right.
What are the interruptions?
Ashrei on your hallelujah.
Yeah, Ashrei you already did before laining, so don't get confused.
After.
Shabbos mincha.
Yeah, get your head out of shacharis. I don't know what's going on up there.
Yeah.
All right.
The Shabbos mincha.
You have Venucha Yomer, you have
Yahalu and Venucha Yomer.
Yahalu, you have
Vehadar Mishna.
You have a daven mizmor, you have,
And then God knows how many kelmolis you might have.
oh, what do you mean? Those aren't hefsekim? What's chat over here? What's the explanation? So the explanation is like this. And by the way, before we explain that, if you have nothing in between, it's also to say one Kaddish after another without interruption of pesukim in between them. That's another halacha we've discussed, another type in Hilchos Kaddish.
Also to say Kadish.
Also to say Kaddish one after another without an interruption of pesukim in between. But that's another discussion of Hilchos Kaddish, saying a lot of Kadishim and everything like that. Okay. So say, wait a second. Funny that they quote over there the Shulchan Aruch Harav on that line down there in the footnote who says you can't just. I've seen in Chabad they do 5 Kadishes one after another with these.
With mizmor in between.
There's like 20-second things.
It's
just ironic. Another thing that's in Shulchan Aruch Harav that they don't do. Okay. Anyways.
Is it Shulchan Aruch Harav the statement?
Yeah. This look over here. Footnote Chav Gimel Shulchan Aruch Harav Sital. Okay. Anyway. When you return the Sefer Torah, you say Hallelujah. That's a shame. Actually, you don't do that. So what's the story over there? No. The Mishnah Berura answers pasuk echad lo hevi hefsek. One pasuk isn't an interruption between the kadishim in this case. If you're gonna say minimally, you need minimally 3 pesukim, and then you could say Kaddish after. So it's just one pasuk. So the Yahalu is not an interruption because it's only one and done, one pasuk. Okay, that's easy to understand. But we say afterwards. The mizmor of mizmor LaHashem haaretz u'maloyo ho. Right? Ein zeh mikra hadin. Who said you have to say that mizmor when you're putting the Sefer Torah away? El minog ba'alma. That's not from the letter of the law.
At the end of the day,
it's a custom. You say it, but why are you saying it? It's not coercion over here. You don't have to. It's custom. And therefore, something that's just a custom, they didn't enact that Kaddish should be said because of it.
So what about
custom? One step at a time. Now, I would comment on that step. The Mishnah Berura doesn't mention it. Okay? You didn't mention it. The obvious question is, what about Menucha? Right? Didn't say that. So we have to answer that question. So the answer is simple. If you're going with the mahalach, if you're going with the idea of the Sharei Ephraim down here, okay? The Sharei Ephraim says, based on a Magen Avram, on pesukim mulukotim, you don't say Kaddish. In other words, you only say Kaddish after a full mizmor, or after pesukim that are back to back to back. But if they're just a bunch of pesukim that are collected and placed together, you don't say Kaddish in it. If you're gonna tell me that it's
how many pesukim do you have to say?
Oh, that's the next line. If you're gonna tell me that if it's less than 3 pesukim, if you're gonna say that it's less than 3 pesukim, you could ask the question on the Magen Avram. Because you say ubenucha yomer. Rather, it must be when he says one pasuk, it's not specific. Even many pesukim, if they are gathered, then you would not say Kadish. This is one potential answer as to why we don't say Kadish on two Kadishim over here. Now, it should be pointed out in the next footnote, which is much longer over here. He's going to present some other ideas on this over here. Okay. Let's take a look over here. Don't get intimidated by the length. Right? The question is, how could you come along and say, okay, we have the custom to say La Shamar Tzimala, Zoysa Torah during Hag B'Menucha Yomer. Right? How could you do that? These mizmorim, they're not part of davening. You're saying it because of a custom. Isn't that an interruption halachically between the laining and Kadish? That you're going to say before shemoneh esray. We now, this is the type of question that no one even knows exists. But once you learn this topic properly, you say, that's an obvious question. That's a great question. These things that we say, custom. The Kadish is from the letter of the law. It's the text. It's part of davening. How then are you allowed to say these things? It's an interruption between the Kadish, which is going on the laining at mincha, the one that we do before shemoneh esray, refers to the laining before mincha. And now we're saying over here, we're saying Yahalu, we're saying, all these things, the mizmor, interruption. Truth of the matter is, the Sharei Ephraim himself says, yeah, don't say them. Forget about it, says the Sharei Ephraim. Now, he doesn't say that by the mizmor of Lashem or Tzimlah. He doesn't say that. Because he holds that's from the letter of the law. And therefore, it's like a completion of laining. That's not an interruption. But, Menucha Yomer and the Yahaluk, forget about it, according to the Sharei Ephraim.
There's Menucha Yomer, and what was the other one? Where's the Sharei Ephraim?
Yahaluk, forget about it.
Just that pasuk.
Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. Similarly, the Shilos Veteshuvos Beis halacha quotes his name on this. Also, the Maharkish. He says that you don't say this mizmor, because then you're going to need to say two Kadishim. He says, forget about it. Yafal Lev discusses others. Sirei Yabetz, they go into this Chacham Svi. Where'd that thing go? All right, I know. I had to get my thing. Chacham Svi says that his father, the Yabetz says that his father, Chacham Svi, would say mizmor shel Yom HaShabbos after laining, and that was his custom. And maybe the reason why they don't say two Kadishim, this was a massive Kadish, it's because Tircha de Tzibura. It's a burden. Takes more time.
No problem doing it by
who says
that's a Kadish. That's a Kadish.
I know it's not so. It's not. Why do some kilos or some people say?
We have to, as opposed to one, you're saying, yeah. Wow. What did you say, David?
No, I think no, it's fine.
In the Shilos Veteshuvos Beis Dinoi Shel Shloimo, he was asked regarding saying mizmor shel Yom HaShabbos. Isn't this an interruption between the laining and Kadish? And wouldn't it be better to either say two Kadishim or just not to say the mizmor at all? He said, you don't need to say two Kadishim. It's not an interruption between the laining and Kadish. Because anything is Meseder HaTefila. It's part of the order of davening. It's part of the inyan of the Yom, the matter of the day. For example, mizmor shel Yom HaShabbos, it would not be an interruption. Only something that has nothing to do with the day, that's an interruption, and that would require you saying Kadish. In English, what that means practically, in the morning on Shabbos, shacharis, we say Kadish immediately after laining. Why? Because we say immediately after Ashrei. Saying Ashrei is an interruption because the reason why we say it is not to just jump right into shemoneh esray. And therefore, since it was established that it should just be a delay, but it has nothing to do with the davening itself. Therefore, it's halachically an interruption. That's why you need to say Kadish before, right? And that's why you say another Kadish afterwards before shemoneh esray. Because you would Ashrei. That's why you say Kadish after laining shacharis, and you do another one before shemoneh esray.
And the Torah gets considered part of laining, even though we're saying the Torah after.
Yeah.
Torah.
Yeah. Mishnah Berura continues, actually, and he says, "Okay, so now we understand why a little bit more about the Kadish. We got a little bit of perspective as to why you're not going to say one by the bima after laining, right? There's no interruption between. Forget about those pesukim. It's not an interruption, right? That's what we just discussed. That's summarizing it. Okay, we're content. Now we have a deeper understanding, proper understanding, so to say, much better understanding as to why we don't say a Kadish after laining on mincha. And the reason is our regal achas is because you're covered from the Kadish before shemoneh esray that you say, and you can't say two because you didn't have an interruption in between. Those pesukim are not considered a interruption, and and the reason would be because it's gathered pesukim.
Well, except for the mizmor, which we're saying is part of the davening. So
part of davening, you have different ideas. Some would forget about the pesukim because of this. So you have different ideas. Obviously, we don't do that.
Sounds like if you're behind, let's say you're saying you come per and the guy's flying, it's not a big deal if you don't say Yahalelu and the Fayoma.
That's correct. And that is something insightful that comes out from what we're learning. And as an example, we see, I think, a few leniencies on the simon of really what's not so important. We're learning about mincha, and you would think whenever they always talk about every holiday, this is the best holiday, this is the mother of all holidays, this is the whole essence of the whole Torah, and they always say that's why I don't like listening to any of the rabbis talk about it, because they always say the same thing every time. They say this holiday is bad, so you think you're learning the halachos. Oh, this is the best, this is the most important. We're learning over here, we see a boatload of leniencies. The laining isn't that important. The pesukim aren't that important,
The laining?
Yeah, the laining. What do you mean? We saw the laining's not that important. We saw that the laining is from an enactment from Ezra. The laining on Monday and Thursday morning is more important. It's the least important laining.
Right.
Right? We're going to see even more leniencies about the laining, I'm not gonna say it in the beginning of this year when people are still watching the first 10 minutes. But once you're deep in, if you made it here, then you understand where we're coming from. So I'll tell it to you.
It also sounds like if let's say person, whatever the reason is, you have to go to the bathroom, it's better not to go during Torah, and if you can, wait till this part over here so you can zip in and zip out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Laining's more important than these pesukim. That's for sure. If you gotta go to the bathroom.
When you gotta go. You
gotta go, and you're not allowed to daven shemoneh esray without going.
Right.
It depends on how much. It depends on how much you have to go.
What?
Oh yeah, it depends on how much you have to go. It depends on how much.
If you really gotta go really badly, get up in the middle of your shemoneh esray and go.
Right.
We'll talk about those halachas another time when that would actually happen.
Sounds like let's say if you can hold out and wait till here and wait till after shemoneh esray.
If you've got to go to the bathroom and it's going to take 90 seconds, and should you go during laining or should you go during these pesukim? Pesukim. You go during these when they put it away. Yeah.
4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah. I remember one time I came a little late and I didn't have time to wash my hands. I came before laining, a minute too late, and I said I'm gonna wash my hands quickly while they're saying everything. I happen to have said it quickly, and I washed my hands. And I'm not gonna do that in the middle of laining. I could have washed my hands in between the liyas. I didn't want to miss the berachos or anything. I did it then. All right, so you definitely get insight from this. Tremendous insight. Mishnah Berura continues because we're really in the middle of a sentence. Middle of a sentence in the Mishnah Berura. Why don't we simply say Kadish by the bima? put the Sefer Torah away, and then right after you go into shemoneh esrei. If we're saying now that everything isn't an interruption, oh great, it's not an interruption. Now I can go. Now I could say ubenu chayomer, hallelujah, the mizmor, etc. I could say everything and then go into shemoneh esrei right after. Why don't you do that? No. So the Mishnah Berura, royal lahatzmecha Kadish letefila shemoneh esrei. Kadish should always be right before shemoneh esrei. You want to go straight into shemoneh esrei with the Kadish right before. Okay. What about in the morning on Shabbos? We say Kadish immediately after laining. That's because, as we said before, you had an interruption of Ashrei in between, and therefore you could say Kadish on the laining, after the laining, and then again, even before shemoneh esrei, a second Kadish because you had Ashrei in between. Consequently, according to this, someone who didn't have a Sefer Torah during Shabbos at mincha, right? So comes out, there's no interruption between the Kaddish after Ashrei and Uval Tzion to the Kaddish before shemoneh esrei. In other words, if you don't have a Torah by mincha, you're going to say Ashrei and Uval Tzion, and then you're going to say Vanis Filasi, and then you just say one Kaddish. So this is a great trivia question as to when would you only say one Kaddish before shemoneh esrei and mincha. Number one, that's one trivia question. Number two is when would you say Vanis Filasi before Kaddish at mincha, before any time you say Kaddish? The answer is in this case. It's an unusual case. Okay? Typically, Vanis Filasi, we always said after Kaddish. By the way, if you come late and you miss when they take out the Sefer Torah, you would still say Vanis Filas based on what we learned. Don't forget about that. So this is in order that there won't be an interruption between Kaddish and Tefillah. Because if you're going to say Ashrei Uval Tzion, right? If you're going to say Kaddish and then say Vanis Filasi afterwards, that's already an interruption. So therefore, it should all be before the Kaddish. So you'll ask the question, why don't we say Ashrei again after laining by mincha? Answers the Avu Drum over here in footnote Chav Zayin. Since you already said Ashrei a few minutes before, you don't need to say it again. Furthermore, Ashrei was only established to say 3 times a day, not 4. Shalosh v'lo arba. Okay? That's the Avu Drum's ha'ara. So this is...
First thing was it's 3 times, not 4.
You just said it. You just said it.
You just said it.
You just said it, all right? Now, this is basically a summary, not every last point, but some of the main points that I thought were worthwhile to share regarding the Kaddish. As to when you do it, when you don't do it. See, we only have a few minutes. Just want to share with the remaining time that we have a important Gemara in Maseches Baba Kama, just to see it inside. The Gemara in Baba Kama on Pei Beis Amar Aleph says that there were 10 enactments that Ezra made. A Soro Takonos Tikin Ezra Shekardim B'Mincha B'Shabbos V'Kardim B'Sheni B'Chamishi. Ezra enacted to lay in on Mincha and Shabbos and to read from the Torah on the Monday and Thursday. Now, really, if you look over here, in the continuation of the Gemara, that's not necessarily true that it was Ezra that enacted this on Monday and Thursday. It really came earlier, 3 days. You don't want to go without Torah, fine. Why did Ezra enact that there should be a laining and mincha and Shabbos? And answers the Gemara, as we learned from the Yoshvi Karanos. Who are they? Sagt Rashi, Yoshvi Chanuyos. Rashi adds, according to this one text. Chanuyos, the shop owners. Kol Yemois Hachol Oiskim B'Sechaira. During the whole week, they're involved with business. They can't even, they're unable to attend the laining on Mondays and Thursdays. Tikkun, interesting word right over here. Biginaihu kriya yasera. They said we're going to have an extra laining for these people so that they'll get an extra laining on Shabbos by mincha. I'd just like to point out, and we'll see maybe some are going to quote it. I already saw it in a few places. Take a look at the Shita Mikubetzis on this Gemara. Baba Kama, Pei Beis Amar Aleph. Easy read. Also take a look at the Meiri on this Gemara. They say, the Yoshve Karanos, you know who they were? New explanation. They were the people who they would start drinking alcohol. That's right. And what's the time to drink alcohol? Mincha time! So we said, instead, it's the time people start drinking. Right? Before it gets night. No, on Shabbos also, weekends.
Weekends they drink by mincha time, not the whole day.
Shabbos, Shabbos. So what happened? So they were getting drunk. So forget about them. Get them in the shul over there. Right? So that's what they say. Another reason on the Ashrei Karanas over there. Yeah, that was the other reason. Wanted to just share. This is miscellaneous from what I didn't do last time. If you look at the kolbo right over here, just made this very quick kolbo. He says that the Chazan says Ashrei, afterwards Uval Tzion, the entire Seder Kedusha, because you didn't say it in the morning. Why? Here's the source that we learned. I just want to show you inside. It's a burden. This is just miscellaneous point. You don't do a Valutzion Shabbos morning and Ashrei because of burden of the congregation, not to make it more difficult for older people. This is the kolbo, straight out of the kolbo, Simemem. Not to burden, great Rishon, the older people, the pregnant women, nursing women, to make them fast, so to say, later in the day. Similarly, the Sefer Hamanik, Simenon Tes writes, Minchas and esray. The reason why we say it mincha on Shabbos and not during the rest of the minchas is a chus, the merit of Shabbos, they will be redeemed, and it's an esray, an auspicious time. That was just the kolbo I had in the back of my head to share, and here's the Sefer Hamanig inside right over here. We only say uvalatzion during the week, in the morning, and on mincha and Shabbos, not in Musaf, because the geulah is only at night. The geulah happened in the morning. However, mincha is a ratzon. Eliyahu Hanavi was only answered at mincha. Why do we say it on mincha and Shabbos and not other minchas or minachos? Because of the zechus and the merit of Shabbos, we're going to be redeemed, and it's an auspicious time. It's an ratzon, even though we ate and drank.
What is that line over there? Kiseder hakadusha magila. Midavar,
Farmer Kiseder HaKedusha Migeulah Medaber. Yeah, the Seder Kedusha is discussing the geulah. That's the connection between the two. That was also an important point. Yes, that was an important point. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So I just wanted to quote that. That was miscellaneous and something previously that we learned. That's the Gemara Malakama. All right, Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. We mamshechim and have a wonderful day. Yeah.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Amazing, you talk to people. Learning hilchos mincha. I just thought you're supposed to wear a tie also. Some people take the tie off. They take the tie. People don't realize how much is cooking in here. All the shilos that come up.
All right, have a good
day. All right, likewise.
Have a nice day. I was on mute before when I said have a good day.
Yeah.